Welcome to the Education Innovators Podcast. I'm Eric Byron. This is season 4, and it is my privilege to host this show where I get to talk with thought leaders and experts from all over the world. We're going to hear amazing stories of innovation in education from teachers, consultants, and AI experts and others who are fearlessly innovating and creating unique, active learning experiences. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get started.
So the Green Game Jam is actually open to anyone to join with a live game that already has an audience, because the reason why the UN environment is also involved is because of the reach of this industry. It's the biggest entertainment industry at this point with 3.4 billion gamers, and that number is only going to grow in the years to come.
Lisa Pack has the coolest title ever. She is Head of Operations for Playing for the Planet. That's the United Nations Environment Program, where she works with the video game industry to encourage them to incorporate learning elements into their games that teach about climate change and raise consciousness of specific environmental issues around the globe. Lisa also happens to be an awesome speaker who I know you're going to enjoy listening to. Here we go. Welcome to the Education Innovators Podcast. I'm Eric Byron, and today I have with me Lisa Pack. So Lisa is the head of operations at Playing for the Planet, an initiative facilitated by the United Nations Environment Program that unites the global video game industry around a bold mission to reduce its environmental impact and harness the power of games to inspire meaningful environmental action. She brings over a decade of experience across the gaming and advertising sector, with experience in strategic partnerships, monetization, and project management. Lisa is passionate about empowering people and teams to align purpose with play, creating impact through collaboration, innovation, and creativity. So welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you, Eric, for that nice introduction.
Oh,
Happy to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, no, this is great. I met you here in Hong Kong at the Games for Change conference summit, I guess they call it. And so we've been trying to get together since then, busy schedules and things change. And so I'm so glad that we finally had a chance to sit down and have this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So your background is really in advertising, if I'm interpreting your resume correctly. And you have kind of a specific skill set, at least by titles I've seen, around user acquisition and monetization. So how did you connect with the UN and then, find yourself in this role of, which is a fascinating title, by the way, Director of Playing for the Planet? I love that. So tell me a little bit about how you found yourself there.
Yeah, so I actually started in mobile advertising, working mostly on the technology side of things, making sure that news applications could advertise in their apps. And from there, I got into gaming and advertising. And then from there, I got into gaming, and I moved actually over to a gaming studio called Wooga, which is based in Berlin, where I lived for 10 years before coming to Hong Kong. And at Wooga, I was lucky enough in the 6 years that I was there to do many different things, from, as you said, user acquisition, ad monetization, strategic partnerships. And I think it was about the last 2 years that I focused on strategic partnerships. And one of the side projects I had at the time was to look into Wooga's carbon emissions and its overall carbon footprint. And as I started going through that, I became aware of this initiative called Playing for the Planet. And I enrolled Wooga into joining their Green Game Jam, which is one of the projects where we use games to teach people about climate and the environment, and specifically games that are already out there on the market that have an audience, because it's so complicated to build a game. It's then expensive to get players into it. And then it's another challenge of making sure that they stick around. But that is essentially how I got to know Playing for the Planet. And at that time, They were a small team of, I would say, three people. We're still a small team. We're about five people now. And they were looking for help. And I really loved what they were doing. And I had the luck at Wooga to get into the world of sustainability. And that's kind of how I rolled into this role. And that's now almost 4 years, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, I saw that on your profile, right? Almost 4 years now. And
Yeah.
well, there's still, it just fascinates me. So as you know, right, my background is also from the video game industry, and now I'm on the education side, and I love games-based learning stuff. And so this concept, though, of working with the video game industry, right? I worked for EA for 6 years. I know how hard it is to get them to pay attention to something that doesn't directly impact their, bottom line, right? And so tell me a little bit about this process. How do you negotiate with a game team to say, you know, do this extra work for us to support our initiatives?
Yeah. So I think it's really I think the first challenge in this is trying to find that person that cares. And I think when you talk about environmental things, nobody will ever say out loud, I don't care about this. But it's always where does this land on the list of top 25 priorities for someone? So once you kind of like find that person, I think it's important to point out that there's a win-win situation. It is also good for KPIs when you implement these green activations, as we call them, into your game in the right way, in a way where it makes sense to the narrative of the game, to the universe where the player is in, and it gives them value to progress through the game as well.
Hmm.
So I think what we've been trying to do in the last couple of years is get more data out there. So in 2022, we did a survey amongst 380,000 players across 11 different games, where we asked players whether they are interested in this type of content and whether they feel that games can teach them something about environmental topics. And for both of those questions, it was roughly 80% of players that responded with yes to
Wow.
those questions. But then on the one, yeah, it is the most important thing that it fits within the narrative of the game. So it has to feel like it belongs there.
Right.
And I think that is one side of it. And then often people are, in live service games, people continuously create new content for their players. And this is a type of new content that they may not have considered before. So often teams are also interested in trying to figure that out. So that's where I think people are interested to hear more. On the flip side of that, we often see that teams want to be perfect. When this is the first time they do an environmentally themed activation, they want it to be the biggest, bestest thing that they have built for their players. And I think that is a big challenge for the teams and not necessary. So what we always say is reuse existing features and mechanics in the game to start with and put like an environmental jacket around them
Okay.
so that you can teach or so that you can not teach but like figure out whether this is something that works for your players and within that activation what worked, what didn't work without having to build something completely new. So I think that was a very long answer
No,
to your
it's
question, but so that's some of the ways to get them on board. And some teams, it's just tricky, right? Because the goal is to make money. The goal is not to protect the environment.
right.
But I think from what I've seen over the years where we ran the Green Game Jam, I think it's the seventh one that's coming up next year. Teams are excited. I've never heard any team tell us, "Oh, we really hated working on this." There's a lot of positive feedback that comes back. Like this is fun to do because you do something different. You probably work with people that you may not work with on a daily basis otherwise, which is nice. And I think many of us want to have something different. And
Yeah,
like I don't think many of us like to do the same thing day in, day out. So
sure. Well,
yeah.
and there's always well, I worked in the industry too, and there are a lot of environmentally conscious folks working at these studios. And so to have that opportunity also to say, oh, I contributed to this element, this activation in a game, is also intrinsically motivating for
Mm,
them, I think, right? And
yeah,
so, happy employees, better games, more productivity, right?
exactly.
So I think that's probably an angle you leverage as well. So how about an
Mhm.
example? So give me an example of a game that added one of these activations, environmental activations. Um,
Oof, there's many games. I could talk about, well, maybe I just talk about the one I know well, June's Journey, which is a mobile game developed by Wooga, my previous employer.
okay.
And they are one of the games, but there's so many games. There is Ubisoft participates with lots of games. We had Honor of Kings developed by Tencent Games. We had I don't know, there's so many that now none of them come to mind. But
That's
there's
okay.
so many. But
But
in, for
what's an example of
example,
an activation? What
yeah.
element did they put in a
So
game?
let's say if we look at June's Journey, which is a hidden object game where players need to find objects in a scene, and when they do that, they progress through the game and they unlock more story content. And what June's Journey does, they use time limited events that they already have in the game where players need to progress to a certain event, and then at the end there's a special prize. So what they've done in the past is created environmentally themed events, and then as you progress you could maybe purchase an in-game item, and the proceeds of that would go to an environmental organization to that focuses, I think they did in the past, reforestation, or that protects snow leopards. That was one of the years. And then at the end, players will be able to get a special decoration for their island, which is another part of the gameplay.
Yeah.
That's one example. Then one of my favorite games that I used to play a lot, Love and Pies, which is developed by Trail Mix Games in the UK. They have a merge game where you merge pies and coffees. It takes place in a coffee shop, and there's a really cool story element to that game. And what they did that one year, we were focusing on protecting different wild species, and they focused on the harlequin toad, and they live in the rainforest. And there is also the Rainforest Alliance, which you might know, which has that logo with a frog on it, which they put on, I think it's coffee and chocolate. So since this story happened in a coffee shop, what they did is they tried to teach their players to the story mechanism of the game about sustainably sourced coffee, telling players to look out for the Rainforest Alliance logo when they shop for coffee. And that's another example. And then Heyday from Supercell is a game that has joined many years in a row. And in Heyday you farm. So they work a lot with content creators, and they have a cookbook as well, and they shared, I think, more sustainable recipes, something like that. Or Zynga with, what is there, Farmville. They one year focused on fruits and vegetables that don't look perfect because we often disregard them when we go shopping.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that they are not good anymore or not nutritious. So they try to teach their players something about that. So that are some of the examples. And every game will do something differently because it is so important to fit within the narrative of that specific game. But it's so fun to see every year what these studios come up with and how creative they are. But yeah, so these are some of the examples. And the challenging thing is, I would have loved to show you some, but these are all time limited events. So they are only in the game for, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days maximum.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm.
Why do it that way? Why make them all time limited?
I think that's the nature mostly of these type of games that have live ops or live service. I think they call them on PC and console side. And I think this is the easiest way because these type of games are built and they recycle, they provide new content over and over again to keep their players happy. So this is
Right.
just one of the cycles where new content is produced. And what we hope is that once studios and teams work on this type of content once and they see how much players like it, they will continue to create that content. And with some of the games, actually the June's Journey, Love and Pies, Heyday, they join many years in a row, and Subway servers from Cybo games as well. And their players love it and they see the value in creating this. So it can happen that you start once and then suddenly you find yourself with having four environmentally themed campaigns in a year, which I think means we did our job well on using games as a vehicle to teach people about these topics.
Yeah. And this is all comes from the UN, the United Nations, right? They're kind of the
Well,
sponsor
yeah.
organization. Is that how you
No,
describe it?
that's a bit tricky. So, Playing for the Planet is facilitated by the UN Environment, which means that they support us with getting access to the environmental knowledge. But it's essentially financed by the video games industry itself. So every organization that is a member of this alliance, as we call it, they are actually asked to contribute financially as well based on their annual revenue. And can we kind of set up this model in such a way that the industry can sustain this initiative over time? And then also that the larger companies can join, but also the smaller ones, which may not have the financial means to contribute in such a way. And besides all the work that we do with the Green Game Jam, the creative aspect of it, which I usually refer to as the heart, where we try to get to people's emotions and teach them something different than they might be used to. There's another side, which I usually call the head, where we talk about carbon emissions. And of course, the biggest impact or what we need to be doing at this point is reducing our emissions. So each of these companies that is part of Playing for the Planet, we support them with guidance on how to look at their emissions. We, for example, have created a carbon calculator specific for the games industry so that companies can calculate their carbon footprint. Well, I would say easily, but it's a bit tricky.
Yeah.
And then right now we're, for example, working on, so what if you understand your carbon footprint and you know which areas you are having the highest emissions? How can you then set targets to reduce your emissions? Because in the end, that's the most important thing.
Right.
So that's kind of like the two pieces that we work on, and we get some support
Yeah.
where
No,
needed.
that's awesome. It actually I see it as kind of a sandwich. There's a third element in there, right? So you have the kind of embedded stuff in the commercial game, and then as you say, you have the kind of green initiatives that a company can do to reduce their own carbon footprint. But in the middle, there's serious games, right? So
Hmm.
games
Hmm.
that are intended to teach, and there's a whole almost genre of those now that focus on environment. So how active is that group with the Green Game Jam and the work you're doing?
So some of those games would actually join the Green Games, and one of them that joined us this year is Longleaf Valley, which is developed also in the UK by Trees Please. They did a very nice activation this year as well, also using their story element of the game to teach people about a specific organization that they supported. So some of those games are active with the Green Game Jam, and others are not. So the
Okay.
Green Game Jam is actually open to anyone to join with a live game that already has an audience, because the reason why the UN environment is also involved is because of the reach of this industry. It's the biggest entertainment industry at this point with 3.4 billion gamers, and that number is only going to grow in the years to come. And I think serious games, there's so many awesome games in that group. If we just put them in two buckets, the serious ones versus games, I guess.
Commercial
Um,
games, yeah, right.
yeah, commercial games. And then, but I think not everybody is interested in serious games because they have a very specific purpose, and not and many people, they play games to not focus on what's going on in the world
Yeah.
right now. So that's why I think it's interesting trying to get commercial games to implement certain events and features that focus on this.
Yeah.
And I think in the end, if you look at games, I would say all games have elements of nature in them, whether it's these beautiful backgrounds, whether it's certain characters, or even if it's a game that plays on the street, there's going to be trees around. So I think, with the exception of probably very hyper casual games who may not have any natural elements, I think the majority of games have that. So there's always a connection to be found
Yeah,
in
yeah.
there as
So what
well.
about a game like Minecraft? Do you had any direct, work with them trying to get them to be more explicit in their content that it's
So
teaching
I think
environment?
Minecraft, I think they do a lot with their Minecraft education wing as well. So we do work with Microsoft very closely, and we are very friendly with the teams at Minecraft. But I think they are one of the studios, I would say, who already do a lot,
Mm,
and they have teams that focus on this.
yeah,
So they never really joined the Green Game Jam directly, but then they have so many other initiatives that focus on not only the environment but also lots of social causes. But I would say they are a
that's great. Yeah,
pretty cool studio.
yeah. I
Yeah.
know they have a whole division around education.
Yeah.
I mean, they call it
Yeah.
Minecraft education, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great to see the companies who kind of put that out there. And I know that it serves a purpose for them too, in terms of
Hmm.
bottom line. Kids get hooked on the game and then they play the game just for fun outside of that initiative. One of the things I love are the examples of where the teaching or the learning is so kind of masked in the game that the
Hmm.
player doesn't know that they're
Hmm.
learning something, right? That
Hmm.
it's not so obvious. It doesn't feel like, oh, somebody added this element of the game to show me this particular thing, that it's so subtle. You were talking about, right? It's got to really kind of integrate into the game, right? It's got to fit within the story or the environment. And I know how hard that is when you're trying to add educational elements into a game and make it so it's not obvious, right?
Yeah.
But then you get to the kind of the assessment side of it, right? The metrics. So how do
Yes.
you know that they got the thing you wanted them to get?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a challenging part. And I think when it comes to, so there's different goals you can have, right? One of them is education. And I think this point, the best way to measure that is through surveying your players before you bring out this content and after. And has there been any difference? And we try to support as well with research like this. We did a really cool report in 2024 on that, trying to see, yeah, what difference it made. So surveying is one big element of it. But what works very well within games is fundraising, actually, to support environmental causes. And that, of course, is much easier to evaluate because we raise X amount of dollars
Right, right.
is much easier than to say we have managed to change behaviors of our players in a certain way. So I think surveying, there's actually not a lot of research out on this topic, and that's something we try to slowly change as well. Because the big question, of course, is what difference does it make? So we try to, in smaller chunks, get to answers like that. But I think at this point, with that player survey I mentioned we have done in 2022 and this other research piece in collaboration with the University of Edinburgh in 24, there are a couple of studies done by Yale on gamers and climate change as well. I think we're at this point where gamers definitely say that they are interested in this type of content. But yeah, it remains challenging. So as we're planning right now for the Green Game Jam 2026, we're also already talking to the research team we work with in 24 to understand what are we going to answer this time around, and trying to get more insights. And a lot of studios, they survey their players by themselves. But a fun thing in the video games industry is always that everybody would love to see data, but they're very hesitant to share that data as well.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a challenge. So we
Yeah.
we try to we try to do what we can on that front.
Yeah.
But I also think it's important to see it as a journey because it's not when you implement one activation on the environment in the game that your player base is going to drastically change their behavior. It's not realistic.
Mm,
So when you continuously repeat these themes in your game, it's the likelihood that something is going to change within players, that they pick up on some of that messaging is much higher.
right.
And that is also one of the outcomes that we saw in our latest research from 24. And but then again, it's challenging because which studio and team is willing to do multiple things over a year's time and then follow that through with a research team as well.
Yeah.
But so yeah, we're doing smaller bits and pieces on that front. Certain things like fundraising are easier to measure than behavior change. But I think, yeah, I think still it takes a little bit more time to have
Yeah.
some clear, solid answers.
Yeah. Well, you raised something like, was it $700,000 last year?
Yes,
Was it?
that was in 2023 when we focused on wildlife, and I think
Mm,
it was 42, I think, studios that joined us that year. And we focused on three different species. The harlequin toad that I mentioned with Love and Pies, the snow leopard that June's Journey focused on, and then there was the manta ray. And yeah, so all these companies together with their players managed to raise $700,000 that I think went to eight different organizations on the ground that focus on these three species. So
yeah.
I think that was really amazing.
Yeah.
And the year after that, in 24, we try to get people out of the game into the physical world to take an action for the environment, but that was even harder to measure.
Yeah.
Um, but some games managed to get people out of the house, which I think was awesome. But it's a bit trickier, we learned that year,
Yeah.
because when you're playing a game, you're really into it and you're ready to absorb certain things, but you're not ready to put it down and do something else or do it at another moment because your game asked you to.
Let's take a quick commercial break. I want to plug the Human Intelligence Movement. I do this in every episode. It is not a paid advertisement. I'm just a fan of the work that they're doing. The mission of the Human Intelligence Movement is to ensure that all students have the skills to thrive and succeed in a world with AI. Join the movement. There's a link in the show notes. Now, back to my conversation with Lisa Pack as we continue to discuss how game developers and gamers can make a difference protecting the environment through education and a call to action.
Right.
But
Well, that
yeah.
reminds me of somebody I'm guessing you know this person who was on my show in season one, Clayton Whittle.
Oh yes, yeah, I know Clayton very
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yes.
So his passion, right, was around that whole thing, right? Studying how do you get somebody to go from
Yeah.
playing the game to action outside the
Yeah.
game, right? He
Uh-huh.
did his
Hmm.
PhD around
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Great guy. Fascinating conversation I had with
Hmm.
him. Speaking of him, there's some others I've had on the show who I have a feeling you will know, because you know Vincent Siu, right? The head of the local
Yes.
Hong
Yeah.
Kong chapter Games for
Yeah.
Change. That's where we
Yeah.
met. How about Paul Darvasi? Does that name ring a bell?
No, not really.
Okay,
No.
when he was on the show, he was the executive director of the Serious Play Conference. We talked a lot about that. So
Mm,
he's in that middle group, really around
okay.
serious games.
Mhm.
How about Mark Delora?
Yes, Mark Delora, I know. I know, yes, yes,
Yeah,
we've
yeah, he was
met.
on the show, right?
Yeah.
He was senior advisor of the White House, digital media,
Mm,
with a
hmm.
focus on games for learning. Um,
Hmm.
you probably know, it's not directly related to this initiative, but Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Atari, was also on the show.
I
So
actually don't know.
he founded Atari. He's considered the father of video games. He created Pong,
Ah,
the very first
okay.
like video
Ah,
game. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Mm,
So fascinating guy. You know, it's like having one of my heroes on the show. But he, for the last 20 years, he's focused on games-based learning and education, and he
hmm.
wrote a book, the future. I can never remember the exact title of the book, but the Exodexa Manifesto was part of that.
Uh-huh.
So he's, yeah, fascinating guy, but very much from the game industry and involved in
Yeah.
game-based education. So yeah, so I've had a few. There's a couple there that you know of. Mark was a great guy. I really enjoyed my conversation with Mark Delora on the show. That was in season 2, more
Yeah.
than a year ago already. Yeah, time
Yeah,
flies.
I recently was on a panel with him actually for the Kyoto Serious Games Summit.
Oh,
I think
good.
it was called. Yeah, so it's nice. So
Yeah.
Mark and I see each other every now and then at the gaming conferences. And Clayton actually did a lot of the workshops in previous years with the Green Game Jam. And I think, yeah, they are also part of a group called the IGDA Climate Sync,
Right.
which
Yes.
is a group of developers and scientists and a lot of people that focus on climate, which I think is also a really cool group to learn a lot from. And it has people who work on commercial games, people who work on serious games. It's a really nice, broad group.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I hadn't thought about that connection, but yeah, the IGDA, I've been a member since 2006, almost 20 years. Yeah.
Mm.
So, yes, they would be a good organization. Yeah, I would think to stay connected with their special interest group around environment
Yeah,
and such. Yeah.
yeah.
So I could tell, right? So you've talked quite a bit about European groups. What about North American? You have some studios in North America. I worked for
Yes, we
EA,
do.
in
Yeah,
Florida.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we work in North America. We work, so actually EA, we are friendly with them as well and talk to them on a regular basis. I hope that they will join us this year with The Sims, maybe, because I think The Sims is also a beautiful title to and lends itself very well for the Green Game Jam. But other
Yeah.
than that, in North America, who do we work with?
Activision, I think are they?
Well, Activision is a Microsoft studio. So under Microsoft, we are connected more closely to some studios and not so close to others. But I'm just thinking,
Rovio doesn't.
Rovio, yeah, Rovio we work with, but they're a Finnish studio. They're based in Helsinki.
Okay.
Same with Supercell. They have a huge office in San Francisco, but they are also a Finnish game studio. So I'm
Okay.
not sure. I think in terms of members, we Unity. I think no, Unity is also I think a Finnish or I forgot now.
Hmm.
But anyway, many of these companies they do have offices in the US. Lots of US studios join also for the gaming for the Green Game Jam. We're very close to Take-Two. Hopefully, we get some more of their studios to join as well. We work with Bandai Namco Americas very closely as well. So
Yeah.
I think there's plenty of US studios that find this work important. But I think it's also something I realized here being in Hong Kong and working more with or speaking more with Chinese studios or even Korean studios, there's also a different working culture, and how these type of decisions are made is also slightly different. And I think
Hmm.
between the US and Europe, there's something similar in that as well. But I would say they're interested. I think
Yeah.
this year
How
or
about
the upcoming
Japan?
year, Japan also, well, we work very closely with Sony as well, but mostly the offices in the UK. Well, Bandai Namco is also a Japanese company, Sega, but when we work with Sega Europe.
Okay.
So yeah, I think like I said, like everybody is interested, but it's often the challenge as well trying to get that hook, what works for them specifically.
Yeah. Well, and as
And
you
it
said,
usually it
finding the
takes
right person.
time. Exactly. And it also takes time to make these decisions to join an initiative like this. And sometimes it has to go through layers and layers of approval.
Yeah.
And that can take years. I think before Tencent Games joined us, it's been maybe 3 years or
Yeah.
maybe even longer that since those conversations had started.
Right.
But then I think they've been joining the Green Game Jam over several years, and now they're a full member. And I think it's yeah, it just takes time. But
Takes
once it
time. Yeah.
happens,
Yeah.
it's great because it's also important that within these organizations, people find the right team to do this work because it's one thing to say, I'm going to join this initiative. but we also expect you to contribute and be active and to share your learnings and to
Yeah.
implement learnings from others.
Right.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It does require a commitment, I'm sure.
yes,
What about Sui and Imoca brands? Have you gotten
yes.
any inroads there yet?
I think Animoca, I always find Animoca a challenging company. They're in so many different places and they change strategy so much. So I think right now I'm not even I think they are more into crypto things, which I am
The
not
Web3.
Web3, yes, which
Yeah.
I am not very knowledgeable on.
Okay.
And they have very little gaming business left, to my knowledge. So
Yeah. What
I'm
was
not sure.
yeah, they had a brand within it. It was actually what he originally started, and now I'm drawing a blank on the name there, but I actually interviewed with them when I first came to Hong Kong back in
Mm,
2012. But anyway, yeah, no, they yeah, it's a platform, right? It's not
yeah,
really a game. It's a platform, a virtual world.
yeah,
But like Roblox and Minecraft, it seems like, it's one of those where it's a good place to embed this stuff, right? Subtly and intentionally, you
yeah,
could encourage this stuff. But yeah, you're right. They're not much of a game company at this point.
yeah. And
Yes.
I think it's tricky. The games industry is also like you have acquisition after acquisition, and it's hard to keep track of who now belongs to who. And when
Yes.
acquisitions happen, how does that change decision making? Do studios that get acquired stay kind of on their own, or are they embedded into the parent company ecosystem? So it's a bit challenging. And as I mentioned, we are only five people on the
Right.
team. So it's and the Green Game Jam is it's a beast of a project to organize, which is mostly my colleague Louisa that does that now on their own with a bit of support from my side. But it's a
Yeah.
challenge.
I was going to ask actually what your role was well, within the broader organization, but also specifically with the Green Game Jam.
Yeah, so I with the Green Game Jam, I that's what I started focusing on about 4 years ago, and then that was actually quite fun being a participant at Wooga and then going into the organization of things. And every year we improve the Green Game Jam. Every year it gets slightly better. This year we are very early. We already have a theme for next year, which I'm super proud of. We're going to focus on reefs and rainforests.
So it
And
won over birds and bees, right? It was
yes,
right. You did a
exactly.
survey.
Yes,
Yes.
we did.
Yeah.
And that one won. I'm happy. That was my favorite theme as well.
Oh, good.
And I think with the Green Game Jam, it's we're often late to the party in trying to announce what's happening because right now we're also preparing for the awards ceremony for this year's Green Game Jam, which happens in November in London. And at the same time, we're already trying to talk to people about what's happening next year. And
Mm,
then that's just me and Louisa doing that.
okay.
And then when it comes to the broader initiative, we have a lot of different working groups. We have a decarbonization working group, a storytelling working group. We have one that focuses on packaging, trying to reduce plastic packaging in for PC and console games.
Mm,
Then we have where we're trying to look into energy efficiency with different engines as well and first parties. And so there's a lot of different working groups that all need managing, and that is mostly my colleague Alex that focuses on that. But then also we need to kind of like make sure that the members that are in the alliance get the support that they need because we are here to support them with
mm,
what they need support with, right? So just trying to understand, yeah, that those needs are met as well. And then trying to grow the initiative, attending different events, promoting what we're doing. That takes a lot of time. And then there's lots of operational things. There's the HR aspect of it, right? Because there
okay.
are several people on the team. And then the finance of it, making sure we all get paid on time and
Yeah.
things like
Yeah.
that.
Right.
So there's a
Yes.
lot to do. And then there's also my colleague Sam, who started it, Sam Barrett, who started the initiative together with Jude and Trista, and I think that was in 2019. So later this month, we celebrate our sixth anniversary. But he actually runs, what is it, youth education and advocacy within the UN environment. And this is one of the many projects that he
Oh,
has under his umbrella. So yeah, there's everything. Because basically, even though it's kind of an alliance, an initiative, it's at the same time a small startup that has yeah everything that you need to deal with when you kind of like start a
yeah.
company. Yeah.
Okay. So a message to educators. So how
Yes.
do we particularly see this as a challenge in Asia, right? Oh, games are, we don't want our kids playing games because it's distracting them from education,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, what do you say to educators here about this and to kind of encourage them to, look a little deeper? It's not all, murder and mayhem in these games, that there are some high quality, even commercial games that do these
Yeah.
things.
I think games are not going to go anywhere, and that is something that we need to come to terms with. And only more people are going to play games. And the funny thing is, every generation plays games. So within an educator that may not be a big fan of games, I am 100% sure that they have peers in their network that play games on a daily basis. And
Yeah.
then I think so something that I have done last month in collaboration with Vince from Games for Change, he invited me as a guest speaker at ISF here in Hong Kong, where he's running a game jam program with, I think it's secondary year school kids.
Mm,
And they are actually going to make games about reefs and rainforests. So I think if it's using games or in the classroom is one thing, but maybe looking at it from building games because these kids, they will play games anyway, whether it's in or outside the classroom. But I always think, what if you get them to try building games and to see how they like that? And it doesn't only come with like looking into hard skills such as writing code or doing game design. Making a game requires collaboration and working together.
Sorry for the interruption. Did you catch how Lisa, unprompted, echoed a core theme from my previous episode with UC Holopainen about the power of teaching game design? So cool.
Like, okay, there's people that build entire games on their own, which I think is amazing.
yeah.
But I think the biggest games out there today, they have such large teams, so there's so many other skills that kids could learn from that. And yeah, I don't know. I think there's different ways to leverage games. And one thing I realized when I was a guest speaker with these kids, they are so curious and they ask so many questions and questions I didn't expect. And that the just that curiosity that they have, I
Yeah.
feel like it's something I'm taking back into my day to day because when you are in your job day in, day out, you're just trying to, oh, I need to do this, trying to tick it all off and just get it over with. But taking a step back and trying to like reassess, oh, wait, why are we doing this? Just being a bit more curious about things, or actually, why is this challenging to you? Or why did you love this so much?
Yeah.
I think is I don't know. Yeah, I learned a lot from being in that classroom, and I think we have for educators. I don't know. I think we have to also just move with time because games are not going to go anywhere. Same with
Yeah.
AI. It's not going to go anywhere. So we might as well just make the best of it and try to yeah find the right ways to use it.
Yeah. Well, I know when I was at EA, I did quite a bit of education outreach, and I
Hmm.
would go out and like you did, right, talk at schools.
Hmm.
And it was, it was like being a rock star. You walked into a school and said, "Oh, I'm here from EA to talk to you about, making video games." And these
Yeah.
kids, you say the questions, and they were so excited, to express themselves right? They wanted
Yes.
to talk about the games they play and why they like them and, and what they'd like to see in games.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think, yeah, that's beautiful, right? Because one of the kids we were playing a game, a board game, and one of the kids said, I don't like this game. I was like, you know what? That's cool. Remember why you don't like it so that when you make your own game, you can
yeah,
make sure that, yeah, that it's more fun than the one you are playing right now.
yeah,
And there's a huge career path in video games as well, which I think
yeah,
often people may not really realize. But to me, the video games industry is full of amazing people and such friendly people from all over the world, different cultures, and you can, yeah, learn
yeah,
from the people that you come across. And then it turns out now as well there's definitely a career in sustainability and the video games, which
yeah.
I think is really important to understand as well.
Yeah. Well, the teachers liked my message because, invariably these kids would ask, what do I need to do to get into the games,
Mhm.
industry? And I would immediately say, study math.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
kids would be like, huh? What? The teachers are all like, yeah, go. But I even did a presentation at one point in Florida. We were talking about curriculum for digital media and trying
Hmm.
to help the high schools do a better job of preparing the kids to, matriculate into the college programs. And
Hmm.
but I did a presentation for the teachers, the educators on linear algebra in game design and mechanics, right? These physics engines and showing them that it's really all math. And so, yeah, so trying to get the teachers to go, oh, yeah, this isn't all bad. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
there's actually some really good things they can learn both from the games, but yes, they get involved in developing games. Yeah, there's a lot of good skills they can develop there.
Yeah, agreed.
Plus, just sheer joy. It's,
Yeah, and
when it,
if you love video games, I also have a nephew back in the Netherlands, and I think he's 12 now. He just starts high school, and he loves to play games. And I always say, like, if you learn how to make games, you understand games better, and that will
mm,
help you to play them better.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yep, yep. All right. Well, any other topics, comments, stuff you wanted to get across in this conversation?
Oof. No, I'm not sure. I would just maybe I do a bit of promotion. If there's educators listening to the podcast, there is the Games for Change Student Challenge that is launching in a couple of days. I think
Mm,
you can go to gamesforchange.org, I think. And that's open to students from 10 to 25 who can join. Either students just join on their own or educators sign up and run these programs in their classrooms, and then there's a competition element to it, and students can win. I think the main prize is $10,000, but please
well,
don't quote me on that. And then there is the option as well to focus on games around reefs and rainforests. So I think if anyone is interested in joining that, yeah, this kicks off soon, and it's open, I think, until the end of April next year. So there's plenty of time. I think that's a
yeah.
cool initiative. But I
Okay.
think other than that, I think what is important, I think, in the work that we do with the video games industry is there's always, when you think you are the only one in your company that cares about this, I bet that there's always at least one other person that cares. So I
Yeah.
think what's really nice is to try to find these groups and create like your internal green teams, go out for lunch together, come up with ideas on what you can do inside your organization, and kind of like start small. But then also I think to people in management positions, there needs to be one of those at least as well that
Mm,
approves people, I think, in any organization, whether that is also a school probably or a gaming company, whatever company, that approves that this is something that people can focus on. So I
yeah.
think one important thing is always there need to be some person in management and one person on the ground to do the work for change to happen. So I
Yeah.
always hope that yeah, people will notice that. And I was lucky when I was at Wooga that my manager at the time supported me in trying to explore these themes,
Mm,
because without that, none of that would have happened.
right, right.
And that probably I wouldn't be sitting here right now talking about playing for the planet.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No, that's
I
great.
think
And
that,
yeah, we
yeah.
do talk quite a lot on the show about kind of community and finding your people
Hmm.
and, you know,
Yes,
you don't have to be brave on your own, right?
yes,
Find those other like-minded people because they are out there, whether it's another
yes,
teacher in your school or say parents um,
yeah,
who have the same heart for environment and, encouraging.
agree. Yeah,
And imagine the impact it could have on the game industry if you see thousands of kids getting involved in games for change and trying to
yeah,
develop these games with environmental messaging,
yeah,
activations in them,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
their target audience, right? If they,
And even like
yeah,
speaking up as a gamer, if you voice that the environment is a topic that you are passionate about and that you care about towards the developers of your favorite game, they will listen to that.
yeah,
At least I like to think, because in
yeah,
the end, those organizations, they make games for their players. If their players don't like it, they leave, which they don't want.
yeah,
So they'll take feedback seriously. And I think when it comes to community, when we talk about topics like climate change, it's also not something that you are going to solve on your own or I'm going to solve on
mm,
my own. We have to work together. And that is also why Playing for the Planet is there, because any challenge that a Microsoft might have, Sony is going to have the same challenge, right?
right,
Or any gaming company. So we might as well work together. And the funny thing is that these two organizations, they don't generally work together, but when it comes to this, they do, which
yeah,
I think is very special. And what we see is that people are able to set that competitiveness aside and yeah, come together for the greater good and trying to make a difference, which I think is really, really nice to see, because it doesn't have to be, well, it's difficult, but we don't have to make more difficult than necessary.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, this has been great. This has been so much fun. So glad we finally had this chance to have the conversation, get to know you a little bit, because I only met you briefly at that one event.
Yes.
Just a note of interest too. So actually, when I met you, it was at the workshop from Crossroads with DJ Begbie, and right, he did the water conservation.
Yes. I was just
Yes,
thinking it was that one. I
right,
loved
right.
that
It
workshop.
was
That was
great,
so
wasn't it?
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he has also just been on the show, right? I just did an episode
Ah,
with
cool.
him, but they
Yeah.
have this philosophy around they develop these experiences like the one you and
Yeah.
I attended, but it's focused, they calls it the three E's, right? Education, empathy, and
Yeah.
empowerment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So with empathy being their real key, right? If I can
Yeah.
make you care, right?
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
get you to care, inspire your empathy about people in need or the
Mm.
environment, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Then I can empower you, right?
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and this is where, right, Clayton Whittle's whole thing comes in, right? How do I,
Yeah.
educate you enough, right? Get you to care so you go take action.
And I
This is,
think it's what
yeah,
we talk about a lot in the Green Game Jam as well, because games, they can create empathy, they create connection, and they build community. And those are also the three key ingredients that we
yeah,
need to tackle the climate challenge that we are facing.
yeah,
And I think I loved that experience, because for me it was so hands-on, and you really feel how hard it is to carry all that water, even though we didn't have to carry it that
very
much.
far. Yeah,
But yeah, you feel it. And I think when we for many people, I think when it comes to climate or global warming, it's too far away still. We don't feel it. But I think
yeah.
if we need, or like wildfires, if
Mm,
you have never been close to a place where there's a wildfire, it might be very hard to imagine. And I think trying to, yeah, create that connection so you care.
yeah,
And that's why I think reefs and rainforests are such a beautiful theme for next year, because everybody loves animals. We all have special connection with animals, and there's so many different species that live in these ecosystems, and they
Mm,
are beautiful ecosystems as well that we all kind of know through different ways. We may not all have been lucky enough to visit them, but we kind of do know them, and they are part of many games and films as well, and TV shows.
yeah.
So I really think games lend themselves very well to allow people to get closer and to get to know more about these ecosystems and to build a connection with it.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to see what comes out of all the activations
Yeah.
next
Have you got
year.
any
But that's
celebrities that are helping
no,
you
no,
promote?
no, we don't. And you know what? It's funny. I think it's always interesting to look at, but trying to find, because then again, it has to be natural, right? They have to care about games and about that specific environmental theme. And that's kind of hard
Yeah.
because we know many influencers or celebrities that care about games and many that care about the environment, but trying to find that intersection,
Yeah.
quite challenging.
Hmm.
But yeah, if you know anyone,
Uh, think about that. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
but yeah,
Okay. There's got to be some out there.
I'm sure there's someone out there, I'm sure,
Yeah.
but we haven't found that person yet.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It was a nice conversation.
Yes.
So, this episode was all about the power of games to teach. So, we learn from every game we play. And Lisa illustrates games can use their massive reach, 3.4 billion players, to teach about the environment and raise awareness of the impact of climate change. And they provide educators with an engaging and fun way to teach and learn. So playing for the planet, it's a win-win for players, for game developers, and for educators. So don't neglect the power and the importance of games as a mechanism for learning. I'm Eric Byron. Thanks for listening to the Education Innovators podcast. Season 4 is packed with lots more stories of innovation and education, and my next guest is literally changing the world. Please subscribe so you don't miss that episode. Thanks to all those education innovators out there. Keep doing what you're doing. You are making a difference.